has always said that we should write two books, the one of our past and the one of our future. Obviously, if we write the book of our past, we can learn from mistakes, but we can also have an opportunity to pass those lessons on to leave a legacy, right? To our children, our children's children, whatever it happens to be, we can pass those lessons on. And then we also write the book of our future, because once we've written it. So today we're talking about why and how. A couple things. Obviously, this relates to legacy. When he was just years old, like Larry's 11 and his dad passed away, and he said, all I had of my daddy was, and he lived for it. I don't know about y'all, but that's pretty important, especially to an 11-year-old, right? But he was telling me this as an adult, as a grown man, that he would give up his Corvette just that extra 2 minutes, extra 10 minutes of his daddy on audio or video, whatever he could get, right? It was very important. Now, my dad passed away 3 years ago, and I could never convince him to convince my mother that she needed to write her story. And we started out just constantly talking about it. I wouldn't leave her alone. And then other members of the family were alone either. So we finally convinced her to get her story written. And it turned out amazing. I forgot to bring it over here to show you, but I'll show you in a future episode. But anyways, she wrote her story, right? The next step is to take it the next step further, which is to record her telling her story. But let's talk about the 3 steps to write our history. So before we get to that, for those of you who don't know me, my name is David Adams with David Adams Speaks and People Steward Leadership. And the whole concept behind People Steward Leadership is to inspire leaders to embrace people stewardship so that their teams will take personal responsibility for their own growth and development. We really need team members to step up their game, to learn on their own time, and to bring that knowledge to work and out of the park, right? Because we always want to work as hard as we can on ourselves, just as hard, if not harder, than we do on our jobs, right? So let's talk about those 3 steps. By the way, if you like this stuff, like it, subscribe. Again, we're pushing for 1,000 subscribers by December, so I would love it if you'd share it. And again, let's get the message out there. Let's move this movement forward. All right, step 1, memory jogger. We've got to gather our stories. We've got to create that story file, the story inventory, whatever you want to call it. We've got to gather the stories. So we use memory joggers to do that. You can find them online. You can find them all over the place, but a collection of whatever will jog your memory from birth all the way through to where you are right now, so we can start recording those stories, right? So we record them in a story inventory, and you can create a file on your desktop, or for those of you that are old school, I don't care, put it in a binder. Just do the work, right? Just gather your stories some way, somehow. All right, so that's step number 1, gather your stories. Step number 2 is we want to make sure that once you've gathered your stories and you've got them written down, now you can do one of 2 things with it. You can either speak into an audio and have it transcribed, which is my preferred method, is to just pull out my phone and speak into the audio and then have it transcribed, send it to a transcription service, and they'll do it for pennies on the dollar, right? They take care of it really fast. But the other option is to write them out. Now, step number 2, though, is have a family member edit them, right? Have a family member come through and edit the stories a little bit, clean it up a little bit if you're English, and to come through and clean it up for you. And then step 3 is we want to either film yourself or have someone film you. Film yourself or have someone else film you so that we don't miss anything. So again, step 3 was film yourself or have someone else film you, telling your stories on a smartphone or whatever that looks like. And then we edit them up and we're good to go. So now we have a written version as well as the video version of your story. All right. Now, why should we do this? Again, going back to my buddy Larry, we don't want our kids to be those ones that are like, man, I really wish I had something to remember grandma and grandpa by. I really wish I had the key lessons that they wanted me to know, the key learnings that they wanted me to have before they passed away. I wish I'd given them that opportunity. Doesn't think that their life was worthy enough, that they didn't do anything meaningful enough. And yet the fact that they lived as long as they did, you can't tell me that they went 80 years and didn't do anything meaningful, didn't accomplish anything meaningful. Oh, you bet they did. And a lot of times, some of those stories I don't want to talk about because sometimes they're too difficult. But again, helping them understand that what they were able to overcome can also inspire their children and their grandchildren when they're in similar situations to overcome those same issues, right? That you're not the only one who's gone through it, and that we can step up and learn from somebody else's story. We can learn from somebody else's experience and we can avoid those problems ourselves in the future. Just number one, why should we do it? Because our children, our grandchildren deserve it. That's why. And how do we do it? We get a memory jogger, we collect our stories. Two, we record these stories, we get them out there either on audio or we have them edited and transcribed. And then step 3 is we film it, right? We get it on camera. And that's where we simply, if we've gone through and we have the written version, well, we take the most important stories and we sit them down and ask them the stories and record them telling those stories, right? Or get the permission around the dinner table when you're just hanging out, having fun for Thanksgiving or for Christmas, and invite them to share those stories with your camera going in the background. All right. I really appreciate you guys for watching. Again, becomes just very, very important that if we want to leave a legacy, we've got to do the work on the front side. And if we want the legacy of our grandparents, our parents to stick around long term, we want to go ahead and do the legwork now because we never know. But next step for me and my mama is to record those stories. Have a wonderful night, and thanks for watching.